Hey, this is Max here, and in this tutorial I will show you how you can start automations with triggers inside ActiveCampaign. So first we'll talk a bit about what they are, and then I'll show you lots of different examples. And before we're going to dive in, I quickly want to mention that all the resources like the automations that I'm about to show you, you can find in the description box below. So let's dive right in. So first of all, what is a start trigger? Now, I basically already said it. A start trigger is like a trigger that will help you to start an automation when something specific happens. So when we open an automation, you see this like little box up here. And if you click that, then that allows you to add a start trigger. So when one of these things happens, and I'll explain you all of those in a bit, then we can start an automation. So I think that's really cool. You're definitely going to use that a lot. Now inside a trigger, so when you create a trigger, you have always a few trigger settings. So it depends on the kind of trigger, but almost all of them have these two different settings. So you can set how often they should run. So a trigger could either run one time when that thing happens. So even if it happens multiple times, then the automation will only start once. Or you could set it to multiple times so that every time that certain thing happens, then the automation starts. And you can also segment who the automation basically triggers. So this is especially handy if you maybe want to exclude some people. So let me quickly show you how that works. We will do that when a tag is added. So it's not so much about the tag option now, but just about these two options here that I want to show you. So here you can set it to once or multiple times. So again, you just set it to once when you only want to start an automation one time. When it doesn't matter how often that thing happens, or you set it to multiple times so that you want to start the automation every single time that certain thing happens. Now then you can also segment the contacts that enter an automation. So then you simply check this box, and then over here you can include or like exclude people who this is for. So for example, you could here say event sign up challenge, and I want to exclude people not currently in the automation challenge. So this way people will get this tag, and then also multiple times will start the challenge, but not if they're already currently inside the automation. So I will show you some more examples in a bit. Now then I want to talk about all the different start triggers, or at least most of the start triggers. And those are all of these. So let's go back over to ActiveCampaign, and then we'll explain them one by one, including some cool examples. So let's just start at the top left. So subscribes to a list. So when we click continue, then you see that you can like start an automation when someone subscribes to any list or to any of your other lists. So I, for example, always recommend to only use two lists. So I always have a customer list and a main list. So imagine we could start an automation when someone starts our main list. We only want to do that once. We do not want to segment anyone, and then we can click add start. And then you can, for example, start like a welcome series of emails, or you could tag new subscribers so that you can use that as conditional content inside your emails to welcome them maybe. So that's what you can use the list trigger for. Now the unsubscribe from list trigger basically works the same, like unsubscribes from any list, customers main list. I have not really found a cool use case for this myself, but one thing I could came up with, maybe if someone is like on your customers list and they unsubscribe from your emails, maybe you want to like notify yourself. So then you do this, customers, and then you can say here, contact, or let's go over to sending options, send a notification email, and it allows you to send a notification email to yourself. So that's a cool thing with that. Add start trigger. Now you can also trigger an automation when a form is submitted. So could also be handy. So if you use ActiveCampaign forms, then you can select which form you want to trigger this for. So for example, here I have a form that is called download ActiveCampaign cheat sheet. So it's like a little lead magnet. So when I use that form on my website, I could automatically start this automation as soon as that form is triggered. But maybe you could also create some kind of order form or a contact form on your website, and then you can also automatically start automations based on that. So I think that's also like a cool option. Now then the next one, and I think this is like really handy one, is that we can trigger an automation as soon as someone opens an email. So let's do that. And then you can also say like, okay, which email will they open and in which list is this person and how often should that happen? So what I, for example, like to do is that when I say, okay, I want this automation to start for any email and then any list, and I want to run this multiple times at start, and that basically allows you to, for example, track how engaged someone is. So you could use it for lead scoring, but you could also, and that's what I like to do, is here, let me look up where it is, last interaction, current time, and then we end the automation. So then you could, for example, also use this trigger to create an automation to store the date of the last opened email. And then you could create another automation that, for example, unsubscribe someone 6 months after they last opened any email. So I also created a separate tutorial about that. It's about like email list cleaning. So be sure to watch that if you want to know more about that. So then I will delete this again. And then we're also going to delete this one. So yeah, I think that's like a really cool option. And then this one is actually pretty similar. Clicks a link inside an email. So you can say, okay, for which email is this? So I could here, for example, say, not here, let me click one. Here, day 4 of a challenge. And then you can also say which link. So inside this email, there is no link, but otherwise you could also click like a specific link and also how many times that is. So this is, for example, really cool if you want to create like your own adventure sequence, or when you want to segment your audience, like you ask a question and then you ask them to like click some links inside your email, or also again for like lead scoring, then you would say any email, any list, any link multiple times. And then you can insert things like lead scoring. Here, adjust a contact score, and then you could say, okay, engagement score at 1 point expires in 6 months, for example. Click save, and then we end that. And then if you want, or at least that's what I do, I would also update the last interaction to current time. So it's a bit confusing, but they will also save the current date. And then you have an automation that tracks their last interaction and is also like adding points to their lead score. So yeah, this is another cool option that you can do. So let me quickly delete this again. And then we're going over to the next trigger. So this is when a web page is visited. So for this, obviously you need to enable site tracking. If you do not know how to do that, I also created a separate tutorial about that. I will make sure to link to that. But what you here, for example, could do is you can start an automation based on when someone visits your website, and also if you want like a specific page. So imagine you have like an FAQ page on your website, and then we add a wildcard so that any FAQ page it will trigger for. And I'm going to run this multiple times, and someone is not currently inside this automation. So this automation is called goals examples at start. So as soon as someone visits an FAQ page on my website, this automation will start. And then you can, for example, send an email that says like, hey, do you have any questions? So then you have any questions. And then you can create like your whole email, and then you like save it, and then you exit the automation. And then maybe you want to make sure that they do not get that email every time or not too often. So then you could, for example, here include a 2-week wait. Now, why do we include that 2-week wait? That's because of this. We say here, not currently inside this automation. So this way, someone can only get this email every 2 weeks, the most frequent. Like if they visited today, they will get this email, they wait for 2 weeks, and during those 2 weeks, this automation will not start again. But if then they visit the FAQ page again 3 weeks later, then this automation is going to start again. But you can also change this period. So that's a really cool example with site tracking. So again, I have another tutorial about site tracking if you want to know how that works. So then we're going over to the next one. And the next one is when an event is recorded. So this is really slightly more advanced. You'll see that I didn't enable it here because I didn't track too much with it, because for this you really need some development knowledge, and I'm not a programmer, so I have actually no clue how to do this, but I know you can do some cool things with it, like track how far people watch your videos, which buttons or links they click on your website, and then based on that, if you want, you can start an automation. So it is pretty cool, but again, it's like really pretty advanced, and I do not know anything about this, so I cannot help you with that, unfortunately. And then the next one is when someone shares an email on social media, then you also have the ability to trigger an automation, basically. So you could say in any email, any list, and then on which network they share it. So for example, if we want to thank them for tweeting our email, and then we would set it multiple times, because we will just thank them every single time. And then we will send an email that says something like, hey, or like, thanks for sharing. Now, how this works, I will just show you that inside this email. Let me just quickly create one. Thanks for sharing. And then you see like a simple template that I have. And to add those links to it, you have to add your social links. And then you have to set this to share as a post. And then someone gets like a special link they can share your email with on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or here Google Plus, or even forward it to a friend. So then here I would, for example, only enable Facebook and Twitter, and then if you want, you can also like change that Twitter is first if you want to. So then you click save, and then you have that. So then I go back over to the automation, and then I want to explain you the next one. So yeah, while I think this is really cool, I have to say I've not used it myself too often, because I'm not a huge fan of including these social links inside my emails, but feel free to experiment with that if you want to. Now, then the next one is when someone forwards one of your emails, and I think it's a little bit misleading, because that's not really what happens, because this trigger, you would say it would start when someone forwards an email, right? That's what it says. But that's actually not really what happens, because ActiveCampaign cannot track when someone does that. People have to fill out a send to a friend form. So here, for example, I could say, okay, when any email is forwarded on, and this person is on like any list multiple times at start, and then I want to send an email to thank them. But to make this work, you have to do this. So ActiveCampaign is also explaining it in this article. You have to include the send to a friend link inside your email, and then you get like a link like this, and then people can fill out a form like this to forward the email. So yeah, I think that's really not cool. Why would someone do so difficult? Well, they could just like click forward inside Gmail, for example. So again, that's also one of the triggers that I'm not using myself so often, but the option is there. Maybe you have like a cool use case for it, then go for it. You, for example, could create like an email challenge or an email course, and then incentivize people who share your emails, that you give like them a little bonus or something. Now, this one really does work, and this one is actually really cool. And it is when someone replies to an email, you can start an automation. So what I really like to do, so here, for example, I do not really have an example here, but for example, here a welcome email, and then inside my welcome email, I often ask people like, hey, PS, reply with I'm engaged if you want to have like a cool little bonus, and then at start, and then I could send that bonus. So you could basically, as soon as someone replies to a certain email, you could send them an email back, or you could tag them or start another automation, or you could also use it for like lead scoring, right? Or to also update their last interaction. So this is really, really cool. So yeah, try to make creative use of that. To make this work, you have to keep in mind that inside your emails, you have to enable reply tracking. I could maybe quickly show you how to do that. Now I'll just type something random here. And then I'm going to type something random again. Then I can quickly show you where you can do that. Because I think reply tracking is really cool, but you have to enable something in the settings on the campaign overview. So when I click next here, then you have to enable this. So by default, only open retracking and link tracking are enabled, as you can see here. But to make reply tracking work, be sure to also enable this. All right. So then we go back over to the automation and then we dive into the next example, the next trigger. First, again, I'll just delete these. Delete trigger. And then we're going to talk about tags. So I think these are self-explanatory. When someone gets like a certain tag, you can run an automation once or multiple times if you want. So this is, for example, cool to deliver a lead magnet. So here I have like a little lead magnet delivery automation. I also have a whole separate tutorial about this, so be sure to watch that if you want to learn more about it. But here you see that when the tag event requested ActiveCampaign cheat sheet is added, this automation will start. It will send an email and will resend the email to people who did not open the first email. So again, if you want to know how this works, be sure to watch that tutorial. Now, remove when a certain tag is removed. I do not know so many use cases for this, but something that I could come up with is that if you, for example, have your checkout or your cart provider connected with ActiveCampaign, and then what I do is I add tags to people about what they purchased, like a certain course maybe or a certain ebook. And then when someone asks for a refund, I remove that purchase tag, and then you could automatically add a refund tag or maybe even block their access to that digital product. So that's something that you could do. Now, another example for the field changes trigger, you could do different things with this. I think lots of different things, but the one that I like most is to create a custom field called engagement threshold. And then when that engagement threshold reaches 10, I want to start an automation that is going to unsubscribe that person or starts a re-engagement campaign. Now, what is this? So engagement threshold is basically a custom field, and every single time I send out an email, I add +1 to that custom field. You can do that like this: conditions and workflow, perform math, and then you can say here, okay, engagement threshold, add 1, for example this, and then one point will be added. You send out your email, and then as soon as they open any email, then we set it back to 0. So that way, if their engagement threshold reaches 10, you know that they ignored your email 10 times in a row. So that's like a good point to start, like a re-engagement campaign, or to just simply unsubscribe them from your list because they're not opening your emails. But I also created a separate tutorial about list cleaning, so watch that if you want to know more about that. I know I'm doing this really quick now. So, but that's something cool you can use that trigger for. Then we have our goal is achieved trigger. So inside an automation, you have goals. So goals is like when someone reaches or does like a certain thing, you can make them jump to a certain part inside the automation. And then if you want, you can start an automation when someone reaches a certain goal inside that automation. So I hope you can follow me. But then here, for example, I have all the goals that I use inside my other automations. And then when they achieve that or when they skip that, there's even a possibility. And then run once. Then if you want, you can also start an automation based on that. Now, then the last one that I want to explain is date-based triggers. So here you see what that looks like. So you can use this for different things. So I want to show you some different ones. So for example, you could check 30 days after, so you can say before this custom field, after this custom field, or on the custom field. But in this case, I want to say 30 days after someone subscribed, is on my main list. Then I want to check daily at 10 in the morning in the context time zone, if this person has not opened any campaign or email at start. And then our trigger will be to unsubscribe them from all our lists. And then we end our automation. So this is like a really easy way to also clean your list. So 30 days after their subscription date, they will start this automation. If they did not open any campaign, then they get unsubscribed. Now, another thing that you could do, and this is probably also a cool one, is, for example, to do it based on someone's birthday. So here I have a birthday custom field. So I ask people for their birthday. So on their birthday at 10 in the morning in the context time zone at start, then I do not unsubscribe them, but then you could start like an email campaign that says something like, hey, it's your birthday, super awesome, here is a 10% voucher that is valid for the next 3 days, something like that. So that's what date-based triggers are for. Now, then you have a bunch of other triggers. I'm not going to explain those because I know that those are only available on like the higher tier plans. But what it basically is, RSS-based, is when like your RSS feed is updated, then you could start an automation to maybe send them an email when someone makes a purchase. So for that you need to like connect it to e-commerce, and then you can also start an automation. Same for a balance card. Score changed is for lead scoring. So when someone reaches a certain lead score, you could start an automation maybe with like a promotion or to notify like someone from sales. When someone enters a pipeline, so on higher plans you can create pipelines, and when someone enters that you can also create an automation. Same is for deal stage changed and also deal status changes. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful. So I know that we talked about a lot of different triggers. If you have any questions about any of these triggers, then just let me know in the comments below. The next tutorial is also going to be really cool because in the next tutorial I want to talk about 7 automation examples. So you see it on screen right now. So if you want to see how you, for example, can deliver a lead magnet or keep your list clean or create like an evergreen newsletter or a challenge, then be sure to watch that video. I'm sure you will love it. So maybe just say hi in the comments below if you have a question or if you just want to say hi. Okay, that's it for this time. See you in the next one.